I know you are live on Instagram. Hold on. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Integrated Man Project podcast. We're live on multiple places. We're live here on YouTube, on my YouTube
Yeah.
channel, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram. So if you would like to join the show, this kind of fun episode, please join in on any of the platforms, comment, ask your questions. It's going to be a fun episode tonight with my buddy Sam. A little different of a episode. Usually you know me as the interviewer. If you're new to the show, this is welcome. But usually you're used to me asking guests and talking to guests, but this time is a little different. Me and Sam, actually Sam kind of pitched this idea to me a little bit ago. He's been on the podcast a few times, and he's like, hey, what if we do a show about turning 40 and I interview you? And I'm like, that sounds fun. And so I made it more fun to go live and not be able to edit any of this. So it's going to be real raw, uncut. Um,
Oh man, this is we're
so,
we're we're flying. We're going without a net, which is
mhm.
so beautiful.
Yeah. And we were just talking, it's kind of like playing live music, which I used to do. You may or may not know that those that are listening used to do a lot of live shows, live music, and it is different. You get out there, you get the adrenaline going. It's fun. You can't do an edit. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah,
Um, so welcome Sam to the podcast and the interview. How's your night so far?
it's hey man, post bedtime. It's the whole thing. I mean, you did it.
Yep.
I did it. We're
Yep.
here. It's going to be great. So for everyone, I'm Sam Powers. Sam Powers Coaching. I've been a acquaintance and friend and a colleague with Travis for the last couple of years, and we've done a couple of podcasts. And this was kind of based off of some of our voice message dialogues that we go back and forth with. Um, and so this is really fun because we get to know Travis, and Travis usually gets to know us, the guests, so much
Hmm.
that I was like, this will be really fun. And he had this monumental thing happen, which he turned 40 this year. I've blown past that by a few years, unfortunately. But in even thinking about this episode, I was like, man, if I could go back and be in the place that I am now when I was
Hmm.
40, how much I mean, our journeys are part of our journey and their story is our story. But if I could go back and tell my 40-year-old self, like, hey, like, you don't need to worry about all this stuff, it would have been so much easier. I probably would have put myself through a lot less stuff. So, Travis Goodman,
Yes,
you're
sir.
40 years old.
Hmm. Yes.
You reside in the greater Orange County area. Is that true?
Yes. The southern tip of Orange County, I would say, on the south.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And give us your snapshot. You are partnered to a lovely person.
Yes, I am married 14 years to my wife, Anna, and have three
Congrats.
children. Thank you. I know 14. It's weird to say that 14 years. It's like, oh, it's been
Yeah.
14 years. It's yeah. I remember hitting 10, and it was a milestone of, oh my gosh, 10 years. You don't think about that,
No.
and your grid for just the time of being married and going through so many things that we've gone through and kids and all that stuff. Like, wow, 14 years. So I'm really proud of that. Have three kids, two boys and a girl, 7, 5, and almost 3 going on, definitely 13 already for sure. My daughter, for sure.
That
Um,
third one's a spicy take, isn't it?
she's real, and tonight too. I mean, she is very. It's so spicy. Like all three are so different, but she's got this extra pizzazz of something, and I don't know. I'm trying not to future trip too much with her, but I find myself thinking, man, she's not even 3 because she's got this adorably cute, sweet,
Oh
um,
yeah.
like really you see kind of the natural nurturer in her. Like with three
Mhm.
kids, you definitely see nature and nurture, like without a doubt. And
Yeah.
you see when they're real young, you see a lot of nature.
Hmm.
Just their
Hmm.
natural inclinations without us coaching, trying to push anything, colors, favorite toys. We just kind of follow their lead. And she definitely has this natural mothering, soft, very classic. What you think, princess, gems, pink. We don't push colors on our kids. I don't like my wife and I unicorns.
Unicorns and leopard skin and
Yeah, no leopard skin yet. It's a lot of pink gems, unicorns, horses, shiny things. Loves pink though, but we don't even like pink. The pink my wife likes is more of like the muted,
like
um,
mauve, more
yeah,
of a
it's like a
mauve, a dusty rose.
dusty rose, not like pink. Like she likes pink.
Yeah.
Anyway, all to say, she's got that, but then you flip the coin and it's utter feral, muddy, dirty, rabid, wild child. So it's either or. So that's what I'm saying. It's like there's something in there, something in the water. I have a reverse osmosis because that's what we do at 40. You put things in your house, and maybe
You
that's what's
get
giving
you
her.
get excited about like appliances
You do that don't
and
break, that don't fall apart.
I love it.
Yeah.
I
So
love
that's
it.
yeah, that's me. A little bit about me.
Okay, so you're 40 years old. And I know
Yes.
that at one time you weren't always planning on to become a therapist or a mental health professional.
No. No.
Would you mind sharing with us just a little bit about that transition from your original maybe passion or career and how you moved into mental health, if you're
Yeah.
open with that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So my journey to becoming a therapist, I won't say it was long, um, but it was definitely a journey. It wasn't a straight, I knew exactly what
Hmm.
I wanted to do type of shot. In fact, in high school, um, kind of early high school, I think was more set on joining the military. So, again,
Really?
so those that are new to this, obviously live is different, but people that are have listened to the podcast for a long time have heard me talk about this. But my dad was in the military.
Okay.
He was in the Navy, so I kind of grew up around going to air shows and going to my dad's,
Yeah.
military, just stuff in the military family, going and different promotions and just different events. And
Yeah.
in fact, I was
Yep.
born in Hawaii because my dad was stationed there, and
What
on
island?
Oahu. Oahu.
Kaneohe.
No,
That
Oahu. Oh, I was born
no,
in
they.
Triple Air Force Base. I was born there,
Oh, okay. Yep.
which is like the big pinkish looking
Hmm.
hospital. If you're
Yep.
downtown Honolulu, look on the mountain. It's actually still pink, well, pinkish.
Yep.
Um, born there, and was it VP4? I think he was part of. I forget
Hmm.
VP4,
Okay.
which is
Yep.
he was aviation, so flew P3s, and they were the ones that hunted submarines like during the Cold War and post Cold War. They dropped these kind of sonobuoys and they'd fly above and essentially track Russian submarines, which is kind of cool. My dad did that. I was like, oh, it's kind of fun.
That's like straight Hunt for Red October style.
It's totally and that was actually one of my
and
favorite
and I'm
movies as a
and
kid.
I'm fully aging myself because like I remember for all
Yeah.
of you listening, I'm 46,
Mm.
so I'm a few advanced years ahead of Travis. So
Yeah.
these were
Yeah.
kind of big movies when we
Uh
were
huh.
teens.
Oh yeah, I would love. Oh my gosh, Sean Connery. It was a great movie. I love Hunt for Red October. The music in it. It was one of my favorite movies
Oh
as a
yeah.
kid. So Top Gun, right? So I wanted to
Yeah.
be either, I wanted to fly an F-14 like Maverick,
Oh wow.
or I wanted to be a Navy SEAL like from The Rock, right? With again
Yeah.
Sean Connery and Nicolas
Yeah.
Cage, in his heyday. Um, but that's what I wanted to be, and that was so my heart was set on that. I talked with Navy SEALs. I talked with pilots because my dad he was in the Navy, so he's like, hey, talk to these people, whatever. In fact, I actually even applied to the Naval Academy at one. Applied
Wow.
there. Ended up not going, and actually, because what kind of shifted things is my senior year of high school. My parents separated, and so
Okay.
I remember that was kind of a shock in the sense that I remember them calling us in, and it might have been just me. This is a little blurry,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure they set me and my brother both down at the same time. But it's a little vague, but I remember standing behind the couch, and I don't remember the full conversation. What really just stood out to
Mm,
me was more, hey, we're getting separated. And I remember just being shocked in the sense that there were, in my mind, there was no signs. I mean,
mm,
there was no like fighting, no yelling, no screaming.
mm.
To me, it was just we had a normal family. Um,
Yeah,
because there's no evident things that would have pointed to me that like, oh, they're heading towards divorce. Because I had friends that had
yeah,
that, and I heard
yeah.
talking about it. But so it was totally out of left field.
Right.
And then at the time, actually, my dad was a pastor at the time, and stepped down from church. He went back to full time active duty in the military, and moved down to San Diego. We were living in Santa Clarita at the time, Magic Mountain area. For those that don't know where that
Yep.
is, kind of North LA County, small little town. Well, not small. It's actually probably 300,000 now. But and I had a younger brother, me and my mom, and kind of didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school. Like I thought I knew what I'd do, but then that happened, and I just kind of was like, kind of felt a little lost, not sure where to go. So I just went to junior college after, just
Cool.
cause
Yeah.
studying basic GEs, and then I'm like, I don't know, and
Those
then
are inexpensive college credits to get.
yep, yeah, just like sure, we'll just do that. I don't know, and then moved to San Diego, which was great. And I moved in at the time. My parents, I was gonna move down there because a lot of my best friends moved to San Diego post high school. So I was like, I should move there
Hmm.
because a lot of my friend groups moved. And but my mom and my dad decided to try their marriage again, so we all moved together. Um,
Wow.
yeah, we lived in Point Loma, and yeah, I was living in the house. It was kind of weird with my mom and my dad. Just kind of, it was more awkward than anything, like weird silences when they. But my dad wasn't living there. He was kind of on base half time at the house, half the time.
Hmm.
But I was working full time at Starbucks and started doing more junior college just to keep doing credits. And at the time, I was a
Yeah.
math major. I was a math major. I was good at math. It came naturally to me. Yeah, what? What? I was a math major.
This
Um,
is incredible. I mean, this is
yeah, it's different. Most people don't
wow.
realize.
No, 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 no. It's not different. I'm just like, this is so amazing to you. We'll revisit this. So keep going. Sorry.
Sure. No,
This
that's
is
fine.
just so cool.
Yeah, math major, and then I started going to San Diego State. Got into San Diego State as an applied mathematics major with a computer science minor, um, and did one semester and hated it. Really
Mm.
bored. I had no passion. Had a really bad physics teacher. Uh, yeah, real bad. It was like in fact, I remember his first class. It was one of those massive, like 500-person lecture
Oh
hall at San
God.
Diego State.
Oh yes.
And his opening was, I don't like teaching. I'm only here because I have to teach. I'm on rotation off of research and I have to teach. Don't ask me questions. I won't answer them. Talk to my TAs. That was the most difficult class I've ever taken in my
Oh
entire
my
life.
gosh.
It was awful.
That's that's terrifying.
Yeah, calculus based physics. So it was just like, anyway, that class nearly broke me. And I think often the average test scores were like 50%. And it was all curved, right? So that became now the A.
Yeah.
So it tells you this guy, he couldn't teach. I mean, he was just reading
Right.
very strictly from the book, but he never showed how to do a problem, nothing. And the TAs were kind of useless.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I was doing that. I worked my tail off and I passed the class, but I just really I didn't have a passion. So I actually
Mm.
stopped doing that and decided to take a break because I'm like, why am I going now? Now I'm paying more money at San Diego State.
Yeah.
It,
Clearly.
it's more money than junior college, and I was paying for myself at the time. It was kind of weird. Like my parents were gonna pay, but then I had to take out loans. So it was kind of a weird phase
Yeah.
back then. I think I was probably 20. That's probably 20 at this time. So 20 years ago, and stopped. My dad did not like that idea. And then I stopped. I remember telling him in our house, and he was very upset. And then I was like, I'm gonna work, and then I moved out at the time of my parents' house because I just couldn't take. I needed to move out. It was just, it wasn't like
Yeah.
toxic or like, it wasn't overtly like, no one was, again, there was no nastiness. It was just like a weird, thick, ambient awkwardness. So it was just like,
It
we're
was
trying
it
to be
was
a
just
family, but
it was just uncomfortable.
it was
It was
uncomfortable. And I
just
remember, yeah, there was a Christmas, and that's what made me, I had to move out. We had this Christmas, and it was probably the most awkward Christmas of my entire life. Just, just weird
oh
tension and odd silences, and you're like, do we? It just was really weird. Um, so I got to move out. So I moved out with my friends. It was four of us in a 2-bedroom condo. You know, two guys in a room. So it was kind of like
of
college. So
course.
that was much better. I'm so glad I moved out. Financially, I was, you know, I was paycheck to paycheck. I was working at Starbucks, but mentally and emotionally, way better. You know, like
Yeah.
I could relax and, you know, with my friends. It wasn't like this weird tension. And then my parents separated again, and then I started studying. I went a totally different route. Decided to study theology. So I got a degree in theology, which actually I love.
That's
That to me
amazing.
was
Yeah.
really exciting. You know, studying old, you know, studying the Old Testament and old books, and studying the, just that was actually a lot of fun. Doing, you know, some Hebrew, and so I actually enjoyed that, and I didn't have to. I didn't
Wow.
feel like it was. I didn't feel like it was laborious. I actually enjoyed reading the history and the people groups and the
Yeah.
context, and you know, all this stuff about how it came to be, and so that was just exciting. So I finished a degree in that, and then started a master's, which moved me up to Riverside of all places, away from the beach, up to Riverside. That was a smart move, but it ended up being smart. Don't worry. But at the time, I remember I was hesitant to move because I'm like, I'm moving away, but I had this sense that I need to follow this path.
Yeah.
But I'm moving away from all my friends, away from the beach, back to like Hotville in Riverside. You
Yep.
just, what am I doing? So I did that. And then at the time, my mom was in her own apartment. My dad, they were definitely separated. But then they tried to work on the marriage like the fourth time that time. And I'm like, so I moved back in with them because I'm like, I don't know anyone
Oh
up
my
here.
goodness.
I'll move in because they moved up there. I moved in for a few months just because I didn't have a room. I didn't know who to rent with.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then my first intensive, you know, how the master's program for that was broken up was like classes, and there'd be like these weekend intensives. It was like 3 days, all day long, you know, super intense coursework with big papers, a lot of reading. And my
Yeah.
mom called me up on the second day of the intensive and was like, "Hey, we're officially divorced." And I was like, "Okay." So, and
Wow.
I remember staring out at the hills of Riverside in Corona. I was living in Corona at the time. The hills of Corona,
Those
and
beautiful hills of Corona.
yeah, beautifully dry and, you know, hot. And so I remember telling my professor, I'm like, "Hey, I think I need to like I just could for whatever reason my everything just shut down. Like my brain just
Mm.
just kind of just zoned out, disassociated, disconnected, whatever you want to call it."
Yeah. Yeah.
And my professor's like, "Hey, take all the time you need. Don't worry about it. Like, you know, you're cool." At the time, I was actually attending a church, and the church I was at actually had a therapist on staff, and they said, "Hey," a couple of friends said, "Maybe you should talk to her." And I never
Yeah.
was in therapy prior, never thought about therapy. I had no I honestly had no negative like barriers to therapists because I just didn't. I remember stuff from TV at the time, like, you know, therapists on TV and stuff, and psychologists, but I never had any like, hell no, I'm not going to do that. So
Yeah.
at the time I was kind of like, I didn't know what to do, but people I trusted said go talk to this person. So I was like, sure, I'll go do that. And
Yeah.
so it didn't really matter they were the therapist. So for me personally, there wasn't like this kind of apprehension to go.
Right.
I think I was in a place of like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do right now, but that sounds great. You know, I
Yeah.
trust you people. I know I respect you people. I love you guys. I know you care for me. Sure. And so then that started me doing therapy pretty much on a weekly basis.
Oh, so beautiful, right?
Yeah. And that was, you know, had no idea what to expect at all. Um, now I do, you know,
Because
but at the
because
time,
because were you about 22, 23 when you
yeah,
started to do go?
that's probably 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, 22. Yeah,
give or
about
take,
22.
or
Yeah, give it 22 ish.
So
Um,
early 2000s. This was,
23.
probably 2000. Yeah, 2006, 2007, somewhere right in
Yeah,
there.
some like yeah. So I was 22, 23 in that ballpark. I don't remember exactly. It was the fall I started, so it was probably I probably if I was 23, I probably just turned 23,
Hmm.
and it was that fall.
Yeah.
Um, I might have been 22. Again, doesn't really matter. But started doing that, and just from then on, right? It was kind of a ride, a journey of
Yeah.
unknown, and then started kind of like things would get serious in therapy and asking these very serious questions, and I'm like, I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
Started journaling a lot. I was a good student, in that sense.
Of
Like,
course.
sure, I'll journal. I'll do what I need to do. I'll ask myself these questions. I'll sit there and
You're
reflect. And
you were doing the work. You were literally doing the work before you knew you were doing the work.
right, exactly. And so I started journaling and started reflecting and going through, and then she started asking questions about you know my anger, and I'm like, I'm not
Mm.
angry. I'm like, I'm not angry, you're angry. And other questions like my role in the family, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is, it's all new information to me.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I just told her my story of, like, I was the oldest brother, and when my parents separated, I just kind of kept the family together. And so she's like, oh, what was that like? Classic therapist question. And I remember sitting there like, that was it was hard. It was awful, right? So then, of
Yeah.
course, you open up in therapy because that's their Jedi mind tricksters, and they know how
It's
to
greatest.
open you up. And then she's
They
like,
know how
yeah,
to
go.
use the force.
and and then she's like, and then she would send me home with kind of journaling exercises to kind of go deeper, and I would. And so I found out a lot about myself, about my role as the oldest son, or just the oldest kid, and just how I coped with it versus my brother and my
Hmm.
mom and my dad, and
Yeah.
how my anger was more, and I realized that I was angry, but different than it wasn't what I thought of anger was like screaming, yelling, breaking stuff, which was more of my brother, is how
Yeah.
he coped with it. And not that it's bad, it's just different. And I coped with it
Yeah.
more internally by kind of just like pushing it down, and I just would work
Hmm.
and kept busy and keep
Mm.
keep my cool, make sure everyone was okay, um and wasn't in touch with my anger. It was kind of very much way below the surface. And so I started unpacking that, getting in touch with it, and realizing, oh, I have a lot of anger, and behind that anger is a lot of obviously sadness and grief and
Yeah.
loss and feelings of not being enough, and all this stuff started, of course, surfacing, which what we do as therapists. And so I definitely experienced this,
Yeah.
um, and then found a pattern of coping. A big one for me was getting into relationships during the holiday season to not
Mm.
be to feel lonely. And so I'd
Mm.
always inevitably find a girl to date and kind of get through the holiday season, be really, really committed, really, really like 150% in, talking marriage, I love you, all that stuff. And I think to some degree there was some genuineness in there. Like, I wasn't trying to
Yeah.
manipulate, or I think at the time I really believed that's what I was feeling and thinking.
Yeah.
But of course, when you start therapy, it's like taking the red pill in the Matrix, and you start to see things. Then you can't not see it. And so, I was dating someone at the time, while doing therapy, and that was an interesting process because I was very now becoming aware of my tendencies, my
Mm.
my distracting coping mechanisms, all those things, and I'm in the middle of dating. And I think at first I was trying to convince myself that I wasn't avoiding and distracting by dating during the holiday season, but I couldn't not see that anymore. So of course I
Mm.
just saw it directly, and it was that aha moment of like, oh wow, I'm just trying to escape my own grief, essentially. Um,
Wow.
and that was
I mean,
fun.
that is, and that is such a cruel. It's such a. It's like this beautiful gift, but it's such a cruel
Yeah.
billboard,
Oh
to where
gosh.
it's like, as it's like shining on you, and you're just like, okay, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Wow.
and I did
What
get
a
it. Yeah.
and so then you went
Then I
back to
broke up with
school.
her. Then I broke up with her. Because that point, that was like probably my first genuine breakup of
Oh
like,
yeah,
hey, I'm
that
realizing,
heartache.
I'm realizing what I'm doing. And these were good. All the girls I dated at the time, they were nice people. They were fine.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was a nice person too. It was nothing ever mean, but it was like the first time my real break. Because before I'd break up out of avoidance of getting hurt, and so I would end things
Mm,
before they did. That was part of my therapy realization of like I would get super committed,
mm,
and then when I feel it get too close, I would push away and self sabotage so
mm.
we could end it. And so I didn't have to be vulnerable and get hurt because I was afraid of becoming like my parents essentially. Um, and so for her, when I had this realization from therapy, I'm like, hey, I think I'm doing this pattern. I'm realizing I'm in therapy. I'm realizing this stuff now about me, and I'm honestly, I kind of have to end it. And I know this is a crappy thing to hear, and I'm so kind of really owning it. Like I'm really sorry. And I'm realizing essentially that while I do like you, I care about you. I really genuinely did. I think my really deep, deep, deep motivation is to escape being alone. And so I think that's not a good reason to be with you. And I don't want that, like, because inevitably what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up breaking up with you anyway because of my utter real motivation is deep fear. Um, of course, that's hard to
Okay.
hear. That was not easy for her to hear that. I
And
understand that.
you were 23 when you
20,
did this?
yeah, or close to 24. Might have been 24 at that time. This is later into the therapy process. It was not like week one.
Oh,
This was
but
probably a little while in.
wow, that is it's so powerful. I mean, I want to reflect that like you're 24. Like
Mm,
I did not have that self-awareness.
yeah,
I'm just saying like that is no wonder you're so good at what you do now because that emotional intelligence or at least that awareness
mm,
that has led you to this point,
mm,
was embedded because I can speak for myself. Like at 24, I was not emotionally intelligent in any way, shape, or form.
mm.
And um, I mean, what a gift that first therapist and that therapeutic journey was for you, and like how powerful it's led you to this place where you share this wisdom with all of us.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. um,
It's the truth though.
yeah, and she was a great therapist. I think really it was a lot of her. She was great. I felt really safe and connected with her. So I think in that sense,
Mm,
that really was enabled me to press into authenticity. And it was definitely it was not perfect. It was a lot of bumps along the way, but once
of
I did
course.
that, I then didn't date for almost a couple years until I met my wife, now wife. And at the time too, how I got into therapy. I know this is a longer-winded answer question, longer-winded response to your question, but it kind of needs that to really get a sense of who I am
Yeah,
and how I got here. Um,
context is key.
yeah, and yeah, it really is. You have to know someone's story, um, which is what I talk about all the time on my platform. Everything is like you have to understand someone's story to really get to know why they do what they do today. If you don't, then you're going to be
Hmm.
misjudging them up, left, and right.
Yep.
And so at that point, then I ended things with her, kept doing therapy, and she actually asked me a question. My therapist, hey, have you thought about becoming a therapist? And I remember kind of like, I've never thought about that. And so I started thinking about that and began to like look into, okay, what does that look like to be a therapist? What do you have to do? Because I had no idea what you had to do or how long or any of those things,
Yeah.
until I found out, and then it was, I don't want to say a rude awakening, but it was an awakening of like, oh, this is a process. It's not, it takes a while. Um,
Yeah.
so I did, and I knew in my like deepest sense of myself that I knew I wanted to sit and be with people and navigate them through pain, difficulty, grief. And so I
Mhm.
knew I wanted to find something like that. And when I started looking into what a therapist does and what my therapist did for me, I'm like, yeah, it kind of aligns that way. And my
Yeah.
therapist encouraged me, saying, hey, I think you might actually be good. I think you might be a good therapist. Um, and so I started asking people. I had a mentor at the time, and I was looking at school. I had a lot of fear around finances,
Hmm.
and taking out loans because I was living on my own. I didn't. I would have to pay for everything, and
Yeah.
so I had a lot of anxiety and fear about like, is it worth the risk of it all? Like what, the what if questions. And so I sought out some mentorship and questions, and really was encouraged to think, but then really encouraged that it kind of helped me find that no, I really wanted to take the risk. Um, so I went back to school, got a second bachelor's in psychology, and I, aced every class. And that was a big
Hmm.
turning point for me. I was actually excited to go to school. I was never really excited, even in high school, junior high. I never had any excitement or like vigor to like go
Hmm.
to class and
Yeah.
learn things. I went and I had fun. I had some fun classes and stuff like that, but there was nothing ever like I need to go. But when I started doing this, I like ate every book up and just read
Mm.
everything for like just everything and got A's, and they were easy because I was excited to learn. So I didn't really have to like I had to study and read, but it just kind of came naturally. I wasn't like versus my other degree of math. I was like, why am I just like it was laboring like before. This was like I'm ready to go. Let me learn. I'm excited. This is fun. And so I did that. I was working full time during the day, did full time night school, and then I applied for grad school because then I'm like, what do you do next? Oh, you got to go to grad school to become
Yeah.
a therapist. Cool.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Again, I'm like learning as I go. So applied to grad school and I got accepted at Cal State Fullerton, um, and got into their night program or their grad program for counseling psychology. And I did it, and it was like a 2.5 year program, which is the fastest you could do it. I took one more semester, did it in 3 because I was working full time during the
Yeah.
day, and full time. Essentially, it's pretty much full time grad school.
Yeah.
At 3, I mean, one semester extra is not that much of a difference in like
Mm-mm.
graduate school courses because they're all massive. Um, and before I started grad school, though, I got married, and so I met my wife at the time. First time I dated when I wasn't trying to not be alone, and so that was a big sign for me.
Mm.
I was like, this is different. I'm not trying to escape loneliness or grief or sadness, and so I knew something right away. Something was different with her and with
Mm.
me. We dated for a year, got married pretty much a year to date. I kind of knew,
Wow.
like, and she knew too. We both knew. I think I
Oh,
proposed 8 months in, um, and we got married. And then I finished, and that's like right before I started grad school. We got married, and yeah, got married. Did grad school 3 years, um, then graduated in grad school 2014.
okay.
So 10 years ago, graduated, and now flash forward, 3 kids later, 10 years later, 10 years older with more gray hair. Here I am. So there you go.
That is an incredible, like, as an opening statement, for anyone who's listening or not listening, like, that's a truly powerful testament to your potential. Because something that I read, there's a great book called Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. And
Oh yeah, Adam Grant.
it's, I love his work.
Hmm.
But he said something really, really powerful in Hidden Potential. He said, truly great performers and people that are thought leaders and innovators and mavericks, he goes, they know when to stop the car
Hmm.
and try a different direction.
Yeah.
And it's and this is an inspiration for anyone of any age, that you're never too old. You're never where if you're driving down the wrong road, it's okay to stop the car and try a different path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's just something that is so interesting because, now that you're here, you're 40 years old.
Mm.
We as men, we are conditioned. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s. So are you a little, I probably remember the 80s a little more.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so funny because like I remember when my parents' friends would turn 40 and they'd do like the over the hill
Yeah.
parties and the black
Yeah.
balloons
Yeah.
and it's
And the
so interesting
canes.
because oh gosh, and I'm like it's so interesting because, for you and me, one of I mean for one of my mental health heroes is Carl Jung,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that life starts at 40 and I truly believe that now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost as if we're ushering into this new paradigm where we've tried on all the things that we thought we could do.
Yeah.
We got to this point, which we are blessed that we're just here, first
Mm-hmm.
off. And then it's like, okay, we made it this far. This is this some for some reason our culture has deemed this a humongously, or massively huge transition from, I guess we're leaving our first our decades behind. And it's interesting, like I thought about this. I was like, for you turning 40, and we talked about this, is like, what's one myth that you believed for so long until you turned 40? Like, was there something like was there an ideal? Was there an expectation that, you know, you, when you arrived at this age,
Yeah.
was there like an idea or something that you were like, oh man, when I turn 40, this is going to happen, or this is how it's going to be, or this is what is that, am I going to have this ta-da, like opening of, my wisdom, or, is there anything that you arrived at 40 at with thinking like, oh, this isn't true? Or like, if was there a cultural narrative that you thought like something radical was going to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at 40, I think back of even, and I remember when I turned 40, it was kind of one of those weird moments of like, oh my God, I'm 40.
Right.
Like it's like, oh, I'm at that number. And I don't know why in my head it's like that number, but it was that number.
Yeah.
And thinking of being that number, what it was supposed to represent. And I think at the time it felt so old. Um, and and I think because of that, I didn't know really what to expect. Um,
Mm,
I think I just felt like something should be. It was more of like a feeling of like something should be different, something should
mm,
be unique, or something should be, farther along, whatever that's supposed to mean, farther along. And then again, and I don't know what farther along I was supposed to be farther along in, if that makes sense. Like I just felt this because I think when you're like, I thought back to high school, like what I envisioned 40 in high school was like this ancient dino based on these parties you talked about, where it's like
yeah.
my parents and their friends were doing these weird 40-year parties with weird funny cards like over the hill and all these things with
Oh
these
yeah.
canes and glasses and stuff. Um and sorry, looking at questions here. John at Whole Parent, WHOLP.
Yes.
I'll have his question in a second. He asked, "Hey, my question is, I'm 32. How can I have so much hair as you do by 40? I need to roughly double mine right now to get there." um,
John.
oh, John, I love
I
John.
forgot. I forgot we're live streaming. I'm like
Yeah,
so involved that like I didn't even.
yeah. I know we are live streaming. Yeah, that's a good question, John. I think I have to say genetics. I think is the only thing I could say.
Well, and
Um,
I'm gonna just
do
vouch
the
for Travis.
roller.
Great. Travis has got great genetics
Oh,
because
do
when
I?
he posts some of those throwback photos, I'm like, God, that's a great head of hair.
Oh, thanks. It has receded. I will say it's gone up before when I was in my early 30s and early
It's
20s.
a half inch per kid. There you go.
Yeah, I guess so. John, you better stop having kids, buddy. So I think that's the thing. No more kids, John. Stop right now. Um, so the aha thing, I think looking at 40, I think my biggest thing was a flashback from high school. Like by 40, you have these expectations that you're gonna have, you know, 3 kids, a massive house, have this job, and it's kind of this weird ideal. And 40 just felt so old. But now that I'm 40,
Mhm.
I don't feel ancient. In fact, I feel very much like Carl Jung said, is that I feel like my life is actually really beginning. I do feel
Yeah.
wiser. I have more knowledge. Um, I do have more gray hair. That's true. From having kids, but at 40,
Yeah.
like I don't want to go back to 20.
Oh
Honestly,
God.
like I'm
Oh.
good. I'm good at 40. Like I'm good knowing that I have like a real clear vision and purpose of who I am and what I want to continue to do. And I know it'll evolve with time. But I'm
Mhm.
married to an amazing woman that at 20 I wasn't. We have a great relationship. I love my kids. Parenting is one of the hardest things ever, hence the gray hair and probably receding hairline, 1 inch per kid.
Mhm. 100%.
But yeah, I think now at 40, I think I'm really defining, okay, what that means moving forward. And honestly, I feel probably the greatest I've felt in a long time. I'm sleeping more
Well.
now because my kids are sleeping better. I think for a good 7 years, I was not sleeping at all because my kids slept horribly. It wasn't their fault, but our kids just weren't they didn't have the gift of sleep like some of our other friends did. It is what it is. It's
Oh
not good
yeah.
or bad. It's just I had friends, kids that
Yeah.
like they slept great, never woke up. I'm like, dude, my kids wake up like 50,000 times a night, every day, every single
Yeah.
day
I
for like 7 years.
my my kids the same way. My
And
kids. So I
I was like,
solidarity on that.
it was
It's
so tiring. Thank you. I feel it's always good, and I bless those that have kids that sleep. I don't wish it on
oh
anybody,
man.
but I'm also like, hey, you don't really fully get it a little bit.
When our oldest was an extreme colic kid, so when you live through that, I mean, honestly, it's a little PTSD when your kids don't sleep because
Yeah.
every sound you're just like, oh my gosh, is someone coming down the hall? Is someone in the door?
I
Like, and
know.
then
I
the
know.
worst is, I'll never forget. One time, I literally woke up like out of a dead sleep, just
Oh,
zonked out for the whatever, and my child was standing over me, and I was like, oh, like,
it's
and I'm just like, oh, what? And they're like, are you sleeping? And I'm like, just, I'm
not
like,
now.
uh, I'm probably not going to sleep for a week now. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. It's a thing, and the latest thing I've added that some people know this that um something I've recently begun able to do because I have been sleeping and I often talk about like the four pillars on my platform is like psychological, physical, social, and spiritual health. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that been able to really hit hard and add into my life, which I couldn't do because I wasn't sleeping um, really effectively, is really like hard physical workouts. And
Mm,
I'm not like a meathead or anything like that. Like no, I knew that I needed to do that from a psychological standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from a holistic health standpoint. And I feel like now at
yeah,
40, now I've been really doing it for almost 3 months now, pretty 3-4 times a week consistently, like hard workouts. And
yeah.
and it's like early morning, I find a lot of enjoyment out and I feel great. And I knew that's a big thing that and I knew that would happen. I just couldn't do it because that's the adaptability part that sometimes we're in seasons and contexts of life that you can't do everything that you would like to do. It's just part of being able to adapt as a
Mm,
parent, as a dad, as a man, that I sometimes have to be okay with where I'm at, knowing that it isn't the best, but how do I make it the
mm.
best in this moment, knowing that eventually something will change. And now that it is, so I'm in this new stride. And so 40 now I feel great, honestly. Now, John just mentioned that number 4 is due in a month. So,
Oh
sorry,
man.
John, you're losing another inch of hair, my friend. At least according to Sam's science. So,
I build, it's the finger rule right
it's
there. See
the
that?
the
It's
fingers.
each it well, my fingers are about a half inch each.
Oh,
So it's like
well,
so three.
it's
You got to go
well,
three.
you have the construction fingers, so
I totally have the construction
maybe
hand.
I
So my
need like
hands are a little
yeah, I need like 2 fingers per, so maybe that's the if I were to flatten it out.
oh my
Um,
God. So good.
no, but John,
Well that
it's okay, man. You own it, man. Your hat, you look good in
is
hats. You look good without hats. It's okay, buddy. But
well that's I think that's a great I mean that's such a cool way, a cool perspective because for all the guys that are out there and all the guys that are listening and all the even generations that came before us,
mm,
I think about how and this is something maybe that is not fully exclusive to cisgendered males, but is more common is there's these like kind of like hard rules for us that are laid out before us. It was like, okay, you got to get to this place by this age.
Mm.
And it's and I hate to say it, but I call BS on that because I'm 46
Yeah.
and I've got new hobbies and new passions and I had kids a little bit later. I mean, my oldest is 12 and so not sleeping for essentially a decade, it does wear you out.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's that whole adaptability, and I think that's so cool. Like getting into this, like you're moving into those seasons, which is so beautiful
Yeah.
because you're moving into the midlife chrysalis. This is where a lot of people fall apart, and or come to a place where they realize maybe I believed the wrong stories. Or
Mm.
maybe I put my time and effort and my passions into something that might have been somebody else's
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, my wife just joined the live stream, so
Oh,
she's in here.
all right, Anna.
Yeah, she's there. I see her. And so did actually my good friends, Amy and Eric. Shout out to you guys. Amy is she's actually pretty much, she's my gym coach. So I work out with my good
Oh,
friends, Amy and Eric. So she's, she's on right now too with her husband. So tomorrow actually, we're actually doing a hard workout for my other friend, Eric. Hi, Eric. He's turning 40 tomorrow. So we're doing his 40th birthday workout tomorrow for him. So that's tomorrow morning,
it's going to
everybody.
be the 40 wad
Oh yeah, there they are. Hi, woohoo.
workout of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, it's a
This,
40-year-old wild workout. Yeah, so Eric's gonna get his
I
butt kicked, and I'm gonna do it with him and
I
see how we
love
do.
it.
Yeah,
It's so cool. And
yep.
one thing that I was going to say, as you've joined the 40 club,
Hmm.
there's another club which none of us wanted to join, which was the 27 club for all the famous rock stars and stuff. That one is not one we wanted to join. We skipped that, thank
Yep.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, what is something that if you could encapsulate that that feeling of turning 40,
Mm.
what was that feeling? Was it melancholy? Was it a little sadness? Was it a little like relief?
Hmm.
Was it, because it's everyone has a different experience,
Yeah.
and I think that um sometimes, and I could say that when I turned 40, it was a great time. I had a great party. Like it was really cool.
Yeah.
But there's this, there's a little of this, like the morning after the night
Hmm.
before, kind of syndrome,
Yeah.
and how, if you were just talking to one of your friends, like we're going to use your friend Eric
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
go, just, what would you encourage them to, um, I mean, I guess just how would you encourage them to be aware of that shift and that in this journey?
That's a good question. How would I encourage to be aware of this shift? I mean, I could. You asked the first question. What was my experience? So I don't want to miss that. But I think it was a mix of, I think, surrealness of like being 40, of like, oh, I'm at that age, and it's 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 not like what my teenage brain expected it to be,
Yeah.
or even what I thought it would be, even like 20s, because I actually honestly didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. Um,
Mm,
I really didn't know. And so it was surreal, but I think on top of surrealness, because it was almost like not fully outer body, but it's just like, oh, it's like this mystical, ethereal number. But on top of that, I think what I came down to is a lot of just gratitude, of really
oh.
thankfulness, of like, I'm really grateful for where I am, and my friends and my family, my wife, my kids,
Mm,
um, everything in it. And I think that was
mm,
I think the biggest sense after the surrealness kind of moved on. I was just utter gratitude, sitting in that,
mm,
being present with that, um, really enjoying my work too, like my
Mm.
vocation, my passion, whatever you want to call it, that working with people and
Yeah.
men and helping them heal, but on a personal level, just really enjoying my life, and sitting in that, and just kind of like, wow, I'm here, and also excitement for the next 40 in a way,
Mm.
like, again, going back to the Carl Jung quote, and what we've talked about numerous times back and forth on our audio
Yeah.
messages, is just the excitement of like, now with all this growth, now looking into this next chapter of this next part of my journey with, um, everything I've learned, and knowing that I will continue to learn and grow in ways that I have yet to understand or predict, but really excited that I feel like just looking forward to, not to be cliche, but to the adventure of what's to come.
Mm.
And not like, I think I had a lot more, looking back when I was in grad school and before kids, I had a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety,
Mm. Yeah.
um, of just
Ne-
what would happen to becoming a dad, and can I afford, and loans, and all these real things I was facing, and a lot of unknowns, and just not knowing
Yeah.
what to expect or where we're going to be, and what, like, just unpredictability, during like my
Mm.
20s, and even like 20s, late 20s, and just going through stuff with Anna, like my wife, like we couldn't get pregnant for a while, so that was difficult. So there's a lot of like things that we
Yeah.
went through, and then now it's like we're here. I'm like really excited,
Mm.
really really excited with this, to continue to grow as a dad, as a husband, as a friend.
Hmm.
I get to help others and give back more now, and just be there, and a lot of that anxiety and fear is like gone, and of course moments come like they all do, but it's nothing like it was
Yeah.
in my 20s. And, yeah, so I'm just looking forward to, like, it's whatever the day brings. Like, I'm looking forward to that challenge and what it might teach me and how it's going to challenge me, because I continually get challenged on a daily basis, and continually facing
Yeah.
areas that I need to grow in and focus on. And also I see my areas of a lot of strength, and a lot of things that I'm have talent and giftedness in. And so this constant balancing act. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at 40, I think, and looking forward to the next.
Wow. That's it's such a beautiful, vulnerable share, and that's something that, and it's so interesting because, and I was just going to say this because, and I think you and I've talked about this, for men that are in
Hmm.
these seasons, so much of the messaging is that you have to be somewhere when you
Right.
get to these ages,
Yeah.
and what you just reflected is that the true wealth of your life has nothing to do with where are you in the societal,
Mm-mm.
metrics,
No.
and it's all about your connectivity with the people that love you, care for you, and then the people that you love and care for. And that
Mm.
that that's really the real wealth of getting to this point. And the real currency of life is kindness
Hmm.
to other people.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think you really said that in such a beautiful way, because it's like you're told you're supposed to arrive at this place, and like you're waiting for this shift, but then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, everything that I've always needed and more is literally right here around me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's that arrival, or I
Yeah.
would say the depth, the level of gratitude becomes more three-dimensional,
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
where in our 20s, in our 30s, we're trying on the versions of us that we think we're supposed to, and then in the
Yeah.
30s we're kind of trying on the things that we think we really should be pushing towards.
Hmm.
And then in your 40s, you kind of go, Oh, I always had it. I just didn't see it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Good way to put it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that's really cool, and and unfortunately we have all experienced loss of some of our friends who, maybe made it to 40 but didn't make it very far. And
Yeah.
that having that gratitude for the ones that we do love and we are
Mm.
connected to, that support us and see us and make
Yeah.
us feel safe. There is no better there's no better wealth than that.
Mm. No. And I think that's the thing at 40 that continues to be reinforced for me too is that 100%. Nothing else really measures up to that.
Mm,
Um, like I would, it really doesn't. I mean, those are the most. I think the relationships, the safe relationships where you can be authentic and reciprocate that is that's priceless. That's really everything. Everything else can kind of go in the end. Like all the other
mhm,
stuff is like, it comes and goes. But those are the things that really get you through all those life things and having those to kind of lean on and vice versa to be someone that they can lean on you. Um,
mm.
like the most important thing. And at
Yeah.
40, I'm continually reminded of that, and also the importance of putting in the time and energy
Mm,
into those to foster and nurture those relationships. Again, is the most important thing to me. Um, yeah, everything else is kind of secondary.
I know. It's as if, it all gets stripped away after a
Yeah,
certain point. And I think it's so cool too, because you're hitting some real milestones in your 40s. You're going to be married for 15 years,
yeah,
which is, I mean, I would say that your marriage is now a sophomore,
yeah.
not a freshman anymore.
Yes.
And I told the coaching client that, and I said, "Hey man, you've been married for 7 years. Like it's like second grade,
Yeah.
or no, it's like
No,
first grade. It's
like
like
first
it's
grade.
like first and second grade." And I said, "Let's just remember that,
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
as and it sounds so funny because like like you start, and I hate to say this, but as you turn 40, you start to reference things that your parents might have said
Oh yeah,
in their 40s. And then you're like, oh no, I swore I would never say that. And now I'm saying that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so
oh man.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, 100%. Oh yes.
It's so cool. So now that you're in your 40s,
Mm-hmm.
and this is something, and I had this because you and I are both big music fans.
Yes.
Okay, what albums
Oh,
make you feel young? Give me like three that because now
how
I'm
young? How
46.
young are we talking? Like high school?
Whatever, like what are some of those, and I hate to detour, but like we also have other people that might be want to know some of these fun things,
Oh, sure.
because I know what makes me feel young,
Yeah. What's that?
like some of the albums that, I mean, well, Metallica, the Black Album,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, Nirvana, Nevermind, you know, I, you know, all of the punk stuff I loved, I can put those on now and I'm like, I am back there at 18 or 16 or 17. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
what are some
Yeah.
go-to albums,
Yeah.
you know, because this also speaks to what gives you longevity
Yeah.
and keeps
Yeah.
you young.
Yeah. I think some of my go-to albums for me, it's a lot of like high school, um, end of high school, just
Okay.
out of high school. Because I'm thinking kind of like 17, 18,
Yeah.
19. Because that's kind of like what feels like, oh, I'm young. It's definitely Jimmy Eat World, Bleed American.
Oh, great.
Um, that's a huge one for me. Still am a big Jimmy Eat World fan. I'm actually looking on Spotify right now to pull some of the stuff up to look through. But that was a big one. Radiohead for me was a huge.
Yeah.
A huge one for me. Really got into them at that time. Um, yeah, really loving, OK Computer was
Oh
kind
yeah.
of what I loved listening to.
Yeah.
So that's a good record that I would play a lot. But Jimmy World's obviously more that kind of emo, whatever, indie emo stuff. Another one
They're
at the
just good.
time.
They're
Yeah,
just
they're
good.
fun. They're fun. I'm trying to think. There's so many bands that I'd listen to, but like a lot of screamo stuff that I was into back then, and
Yes.
just like Foo Fighters were big then. I mean, they're still big now, but back then there was kind of like they were blowing up, and so I
Yeah,
listened
there's
to them,
Zenith.
and
There's Zenith
yeah,
of it was new and it was exciting.
oh yeah,
And oh god, I wish you got to dig up some of like your screamo photos
I need to. I
because
need to. I don't know if I have any. They're on not Polaroids, but like the, you know, the
yes,
the disposable cameras, right? And so
yes,
where those photos are, I have a ton somewhere. Don't know where they are. They might have been burned and on the news, but um, yeah. So like other bands like that. Oh, Dashboard Confessional was a big one for
great.
me at that time. All the you know emo stuff. So I was really big into that at 16, 17, 18, 19. Um, U2 was a big one. I
Yeah,
was really into U2. Got to see them at a young age, which was a lot of fun, seeing this big band. So that was a huge one for me. And then going to just like random punk, emo indie concerts,
hmm,
right? Like all the time. And in San Diego, we had Soma, so we'd go there all the time, as you know, right?
yeah.
I
Went
mean,
a lot.
yeah, went a lot. So I mean, that was a Switchfoot. I was a big Switchfoot fan then,
Yeah,
and they were huge, then that time. So going to just seeing, Death Cab for Cutie, all those bands. So that was kind of Muse at the time was just kind of getting started and blowing up in the early 2000s, like 2000, probably what, 3, I think, for them,
three,
something like
four,
that.
five, somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
so I think what brings me young is like just out of high school, just in moving to San Diego. That was kind of like that phase for me, just kind of living with my buddies, roommates, and stuff. And so that's kind of what I think of being young. And so all the other bands that I was into then, I mean, Spoon, I mean, so many guys. So that's kind of like what brings me back and gets me excited.
That's so cool because I find it no matter how old no matter where you are on your age journey,
Mm-hmm.
there's always those bands or those albums that take you back to those places where you're like, oh man, I was there. I was this old. I was driving that car.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Oh yeah,
and I
Coldplay
hate
too.
to
That's a
sit
big
like,
one. Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah.
And it's funny because, and I thought about this long and hard because my dad's 70
Mm-hmm.
and he'll still put on records and he'd be like, I heard this when I was like 18. And I was like,
Yeah,
and I watched my 70-year-old dad turn, like there's that glimmer.
yeah.
There's that sparkle where it's like you hear that first opening stanza
Mm-hmm.
of any of the album, or that you put it in and you're just like, oh my gosh, like I am revisiting my youth, you know, there. And that, I think that's something that's so beautiful. Like, some people's, vice, memories are art. Some of them are books. Some of them are,
Yeah.
experiences, and kind of with that, I was going to say, has there been any books that you've read now or that you hold that have kind of helped carry you through
Mm.
this journey of age?
Oh yeah. I think the most seminal piece for me that I've read numerous times that I recommend pretty much everyone to read is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Oh, there you go.
Um, like if I could say one book that'd be the book that I would consistently turn to. Um,
Yeah.
on various levels.
Timeless, right?
Yeah, I mean, great, great book. I mean, I've read it multiple times. Multiple times. I
Mm-hmm.
have various editions of it. Just because it's like I would read it and just take it in, and you could sit with it. I mean, it's a heavy book, short. It's not a
Yeah.
long. It's not a long read. It's not like 1,000 pages. It's like 200 pages maybe. But as you know, very deep. So that's a big life changing book for me to deal with
Interesting.
suffering and meaning and purpose and death and all these things. So that was a big book that I would come back to challenge myself and ask questions. So yeah,
I mean, that's a phenomenal, you know, I, and I was going to say, for me, probably The Alchemist, was one that I just reread it, and I think I read it when it came out and I reread it and I was like, whoa, this is powerful. I
yeah,
forgot how good this is because it's
yeah,
that, wisdom
mm,
never ages. It
yeah,
just changes shape.
yep. That's a good way to put it. Never, yeah. And it's funny too. All these bands like that brings me back is like they've all had their 20th anniversary. And I remember going to the
I
20th
know.
anniversary tour of Death Cab, and we talked about this in a previous episode. Death Cab for Cutie
Yeah.
and Postal Service when they did that, and that's another band that brings me back, Postal Service. But I remember going like, and then when we were there, it's like all people our age in like their 40s, right? And it's like, oh yeah, we're there. Like they're releasing their 20th year anniversary or the 20th year tour of when this was released. I'm like, oh, that's fun. So yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
know.
But it's fun
It's
because everyone's like, we're all the same. We're like, oh, we're all like in our
you
40s,
know, we all have
you
like
know.
our Advil in our pocket.
We have seats. I have to sit. We were just at a show the other night. Novo and More, great band by this way to see them
Great
at.
band,
But
phenomenal.
we were in an environment where we had to stand the whole time. I don't like that. I
Oh,
like my seat. I have to say, I like my seat. I like being able to sit and stand and sit when I want. But this whole standing thing, I'm not into it. For 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, I'm okay.
uh,
Just not a fan.
yeah. We're
So,
we're going to see Ray LaMontagne,
do you have seats?
and we have seats, and I and I can tell you the show that changed me forever on this.
Okay.
And no joke, I got to see the Police on their reunion tour.
Oh, that's rad. Okay.
So they were like my bucket list, and Elvis Costello opened for him,
Wow.
which was mind blowing.
That's
But
yeah. But
I had at that time,
uh-huh.
I was like, it was for anyone who knows San Diego, it was Coors Amphitheater. Now it's like Sleep Train. It's down near Chula Vista. It's this huge thing, and they have seats and then they have grass. So if you are in Irvine Meadows,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford the seats, so I bought a lawn seat. And I was like, I will never do this again. If I ever have to, I will pay for the seats because I had that tipping point of where like, okay, my Vans needed like orthotics in them now.
Yeah. No. I had my Vans on too, man. I'm like, oh, my feet are killing me. Like, I need something, or probably orthotics. So there you go. We should get some.
or they
Some
they have Vans now have the really cushioned
they
shoes.
they do. I need to get a pair. Are they worth it? Do you think?
They're totally worth
Okay.
it.
All right. All right. By the way,
I
my
and,
coach is
and I hate
laughing.
to,
She's laughing at us that we couldn't stand.
yeah, no, but
Yeah, it's true.
it's really hard. I mean, like I still skate when I can because I skate with my kids, and
Gotcha.
I have to wear Vans with like the extra cushioning because I'm like, man, I didn't know that every bump is coming through my big toe now.
It's yeah, it's the aches though. It's like the ache. It just aches. I'm like, oh, and you're like trying to like, you can't get comfortable. So I always go to shows with seats now. So and so do you.
so
So this
so
is 40.
here's thing with 40. What's one thing you so dislike about turning 40? Is it like a physical thing? It's like I've worked in physical environments most of my life. So for me, like turning 40, the recovery time of my physical body is like another game changer, especially when you have younger kids.
Yeah,
And so like that's like if I could, erase that part of the
yeah,
aging process, I
I
would,
yeah.
oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
I think I would erase the same thing. I think the recovery time, if you had like a really bad rough night of sleep with kids, like everyone's sick or something, and you sleep
Oh,
2 hours, Now
Oh, it's the worst.
I feel it for minimum a week, minimum, and you're like, I can't, and then you feel it. It's just like everything's sluggish. Like in my 20s, I'm like 2 hours sleep. I mean, I'll go get a burrito, some carne asada fries, and I'll keep going. And more coffee, I'm good. Like I don't have to sleep. But now I'm like, dude, yeah, that would be great if the recovery was quicker. That would be if I would erase that. Yeah,
Oh, that's so yeah. No, that's so funny.
easy.
And since your strength and training coaches are here,
Yeah, and I just got text the workout for tomorrow, so I'm looking at it, knowing that I got to do that in just a few hours, which is going to be a lot of fun. But it's for my buddy. Oh my goodness, I'm pulling it up right now. Oh, Eric, I'm sorry. Ooh, that's a good one. Man, I'm gonna. Sorry,
you
but
got
I'm gonna
this.
feel great. No,
It's
I'm.
it's it's
It's
going
gonna
to
be
be
awesome.
super good. So, one thing I was going to say, since you live a busy season and
Mm,
you have a beautiful partner, fantastic kids,
yep.
challenging kids. What do you do for yourself when you are by yourself to recharge and
Mm,
because I think you and I have talked about this multiple times, and I hear this, and I
yeah.
bring this up because like I hear like, oh, you just need self-care. And I was like, I freaking hate that term. Like I'm like, I mean, self-care is like, I don't even have 30. I mean, this is probably the best part of my, the last 12, 16 hours of my days. Like no one's asking me for anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting to have this dialogue with you
Yeah. Yeah.
and who else is ever going to listen. Like
Not
what's
much.
something that what's something that you do that is truly just for yourself to help,
Mm,
deepen the well of your wisdom, of your soul, so that you can bring all this beautiful work to us? What
yeah.
what is it you do? Is it besides working out with your team? Is it like, do you go mountain biking? Do you go surf? Do you do yoga? Like what is
Oh yeah.
something that could be, and I'm going to rephrase this, what could appear to be selfish,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but it
What do I
is
do? Yeah.
necessary
Yeah. And this is strictly with no people, right? Is that correct?
just for you.
Just for me.
Just
So
for
no,
you.
by myself alone. You mean no
Yeah.
one? Okay. Because I definitely recharge having deep conversation for sure. So that's one thing that
Yeah.
I do like doing. But take that
Yeah.
aside and take out working out
Yeah.
since that does actually help me. Take that out for a
Yeah.
second. Other things I do that really give quite a few things, but playing music, getting my guitar out and just
Mm.
creating whatever is happening in the moment is a big. I love, I, yeah, I just love guitar, love holding it. I mean, the experience, the smell, the tone. So I'm a big gearhead, so I really enjoy that.
Mm.
Um, I
And
really, really do. And I have one at work, so I was, in between
oh
stuff, in
wow.
between clients, I have a one that if it got stolen, I wouldn't care. Um,
Yeah.
I call it my beach camp guitar. So the musicians out there know what I'm talking about. Like you have ones that, yeah, if it got stolen, you'd be a little sad, but it's not like I'm not breaking the bank if it gets stolen here. Um, and so, but I have that at my office just to kind of pluck around on. It also helps me recenter too after some client sessions, just clear my head, and even for a few minutes is sometimes enough. Just even like pluck a few strings and just kind of sit there with the resonance is like sometimes enough. Love music, love early mornings, like before everyone's awake. Um,
Mm.
I'm a morning person, so getting my mornings back now that my kids are sleeping has been actually really life giving to me because I am a morning person, and
Yeah.
um, before I didn't have that, and so like I really enjoy when it's quiet. I love the smells, sitting outside,
Mm.
coffee, just quiet is really
Yeah.
recharging, or even some music just to kind of close my eyes and just sit there and just like
Yeah.
just listen. Um, uh, yeah. Um, those are some of my go tos, I think. Um, lately, bird watching. So,
Really?
yeah, sitting outside my backyard, coffee, watching birds. I know it sounds whatever, but it's calming. Just kind of
Oh, it's so
Just
yeah.
you know, I'm outside and I get the sounds of nature, everything, and I love morning too because like everything's waking up and it's there's something different. I don't like nights as much. It's just a different sense
Mm,
to me. I like the morning. Something about morning that for me that just is like very refreshing and like I need quiet in the morning. Like I have to have that. And
mm.
it was really hard when my kids weren't sleeping when they were up at like 4 a.m. every day or 4:30 every a.m. So I'm like, now, but now I did really cherish those times with them because I
Yeah.
was exhausted, but I would, a lot of great bonding moments. Like we would hug each other, just have fun. But it was tiring because I need that early morning quiet for me to charge myself to then take on the day. And now that I have that back,
Mm.
like it is, I could tell a difference. I think my wife can tell a difference. I don't know. We'll see if she responds. She may not. She might say, yeah, no, no, I'm just kidding. I think she could tell a difference. Um, but no, yeah. So those are some things I like to do that I really enjoy. That really I think fill me up. Um, at least right now in
Oh,
this season of life. So yeah.
yeah. No, that's really cool. It's yeah, it's something that I think any dad, husband, partner, man, all of the versions that we are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes we are afraid to admit that it's actually that we would like to be alone
Mm.
sometimes
Yeah.
because it's a very unpopular, and as we move into our journeys of age, I find it fascinating how just even being awake early, like you, because I get up pretty early, you know, and there is this beautiful hush
Mm.
that kind of falls upon our world before the mechanisms of life show up.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And even just sitting, journaling, watching the birds can be a meditative practice that, just reminds us that there is something bigger than us that
Mm-hmm.
surrounds us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
And I think it's really cool because that's something that I think for a lot of us guys, like we can relate. Like my son, when he was young, he would get up at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
and I would literally load him into the Bob, the jogging stroller. This
Mm-hmm.
is not sponsored by Bob, but it was the best stroller I ever had. And I would literally push him through the neighborhood like at dark 30 for like an hour straight, and then would be pushing him back at like
Yeah.
5:45, and then I'd be getting ready for work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. But that's how you found your peace, right? That's how you found. I mean, what you
Oh,
have
I
to.
mean, just for
You're
him to
adapting.
sleep,
Oh yeah.
for him to sleep, it was
Yeah.
the greatest, and to give my wife the gift of that sleep,
Mm.
because so that she could function. I was
Mm-hmm.
just it was survival,
Yeah.
and
No, you're right.
it's
Yeah.
such a beautiful thing. So we're at an hour and
120.
18 minutes.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
should do
So,
one more close up or wrap up, or what do you think?
well, I was going to ask, does anyone else have any questions? Does
Yeah.
Anna have any questions?
I don't know. She may not be listening anymore.
She's like,
She might. And I'm done. Um.
it's okay. Like I think it's such a beautiful thing. Um, and really, what I wanted before we kind of like close this out, I just
Sure.
want to
Sure.
say thank you so much for your transparency and your vulnerability, because being on that seat is a different experience.
You're right. It is.
It and it's funny because when you even said, "Hey, we're going to do this like live stream," I played a lot of music live with bands, all the things, and as you have done, and there is this genuine nervous excitement
Mm-hmm.
of like being like, okay, we can't stop.
Yeah.
The show goes on, and so I just want to say thank you so much,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, for just sharing your beautiful journey and your work with us. And so I think what I would probably say, for kind of to close this out is, as you usher other people in to this ritual of turning 40 with, the work that you've done, what are if this is, if you had to leave any lasting words of
Mm.
wisdom for anyone, any gender, for your kids, because I have sons, you have sons, and there's going to come a point where you know, I will not be on this side anymore,
Mm.
and if I could leave any wisdom, for them, there's a couple things that I would probably say is just like love one another,
Mm-hmm.
stay curious, be curious, be respectful, be
Yeah.
grateful, and we all are in this together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what would you, if you had to give your own eulogy? And because this is an experiment, and this is a thing I do with my clients, I ask them, like, how would you, what kind of parting wisdom would you want to leave
Mm.
to anyone
Yeah.
now that you've made it to this point?
Now that I made it to 40, I still have a long way to go, a lot to
Yeah,
learn.
you do.
But for sure, just some of the not class. I mean, those things for sure. Loving, staying curious. I think at the core of I think my being and hopefully what I'm imparting to my kids, hoping to staying curious, loving that teamwork, being for one another type of thing. Absolutely. But I think the thing that at least in our day and age and our culture that we live in, I think the power of stillness. Um,
Oh, yeah.
I think if you get to learning the that power of learning, stillness and all that means in all the different ways.
Mm,
What life you can find when you get to that place, and how when you're also still, and obviously taking that step further is that you're not anxious. There's no letting go of fear and worry and doubt and all those things, and you're able to kind of just be present, be excited for what's to come, and whatever happens, whatever might unfold is kind of coming from this still soul state. Um,
mm,
and I think that's what I try to tap into when I'm in my mornings, is trying to get to that kind of stillness of
mhm,
openness, awareness, connectedness. Um, and when I don't do those practices enough, when I find that I'm missing my mornings, I find that I
mhm,
am more easily irritated, or more less
mm.
lower frustration, less patience, right? I'm more prone to jumping in my head to anxiety or whatever it is. But when I
Yeah.
have a regular practice of that kind of stillness, that quiet, it fills me. And so that would be something that if you get to that place, along the other stuff that we said, like loving, curiosity, teamwork, for being for others, using your power and agency for good, right? I mean, yes, but I think behind all that is that stillness. And so just to
Mm,
encourage, and me, I'm talking to my kids, like, get to that place. Um,
yeah.
and then in that stillness place, you also kind of find who you are and your giftedness and what you can offer the world, um, and what you are offering the world. So it's kind of like there's so much that comes from that place.
Mm,
And I think over time that place evolves, right? Like maybe what I found in that stillness at 20 is very different at 40. Um,
mm.
and so in a way, it's that openness to be receptive to what is. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
Gosh, that's so beautiful. And,
Thanks.
I think everyone needs more stillness in our lives.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. And my wife is really
Well,
good at trying to create that for our family. So I'm very grateful for her.
oh,
And really instilling that in our kids. Um,
Mm,
really grateful for that for her that she does that. Um, yeah, like she's really has a gift for that, and so I'm very appreciative of that. And
mm,
because it's so easy, I think, with kids now, like just so much stuff happening all the time, and so uh,
yeah.
and so it's like having that foundation of learning to just be curious, which comes
Hmm.
from, I think, being still, like, enables you to be curious and to listen. So I think she's laying that foundation on her kids. So I think that's going to really help them in whatever is going to come in our culture for the next 20 years. I think if anything, it's just going to continue getting faster in some ways. And
Hmm.
so I see the, I think, negative side impact of that on a daily basis in my job, and as you do too as a coach. And so,
Hmm.
like, yeah, countering that in an effective way, not being afraid of stuff, but really instilling like a balance. And so,
Mm.
anyway, I'm very grateful for that she really does that with our family, big time.
Oh, Travis, thank you so much for sharing your time with us, because this has been really just a really beautiful experience to hear all the beautiful parts. The math genius becomes the theology, major that becomes the therapist. I mean,
It's a it's a
it's it,
it's a journey.
it's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for the work that you do, your authenticity and your transparency and your vulnerability that you share freely with all of us
Mm.
and with your clients and your family. And we're just so grateful that you're here and that you've arrived at 40. And I cannot wait to see the beautiful things that you're going to do in the future. So thank you again, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, man, for our friendship and you interviewing me and our conversations back and forth. I cherish all the audio texts that we get back and forth, and um, yeah, and those listening, all the links of this is in the description of itself, so
Yes.
it's all
Yes.
there. You know where to find it. Click on it, and you'll find it. Um,
Yes.
but thank you, and this was really fun. This was a fun little
It's
different
so
spin
fun.
of a
We'll do it
podcast
again for
episode. So
sure.
we'll do it again for sure, and be on the lookout. Those that are listening to this audio only or video, there's some fun, exciting things happening coming up, which how yet to be revealed, but will be shortly when I have more information. So I'm very excited to share that announcement with you when that does come. But until then, everybody have a great night, and Sam, thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
See ya.
See ya.